Guys, it is Tristan with Nerdettes Newsdown, and this subject is really going to irritate me, and honestly, it should irritate everyone. I'm curious to see how some people come back with this, how they justify this, how the comments go, because today, Ray Fisher did a big tell-all article in The Hollywood Reporter, and we're going to go into it in some depth, but what I want to talk about specifically is the Geoff Johns section, because like any other woke mob, they're going to come for you at one point or another. I know it's cliche, I know it sounds silly, but it's the truth. They're going to come for you. You might think you're safe, but you're not. At one point or another, you're going to get attacked, and that's exactly what's happened with Geoff Johns, and unfortunately, it looks really, really bad. I agree with Geoff Johns, but what I'm telling you from a PR perspective, it's probably a nightmare. And I honestly feel really bad for Geoff Johns. Now, of course, right up front, I'm going to tell you my bias. I think Geoff Johns is the single greatest comic book creator in the past 30 years. I can say that with 100% surety that he is and has created some of the best arcs, has done some of the best work, and honestly, a lot of what he does is really fleshed out and deep and in detail, and you can look at stuff like Blackest Night or Flashpoint. Some of his stuff is the most famous in DC that you will see. His Aquaman run is fantastic. His Doomsday Clock, I know some people didn't care for that, but even so, my personal favorite of his is his JLA stuff, but I always enjoyed his Green Lanterns. I can read it comparatively to what we've gotten more in recent times. No offense, Grant Morrison, but that run was something else. At least we had Liam Sharp's art. Yeah. So, even so, his Teen Titans stuff is everything you could possibly think of. Superman. Let's say it. Cyborg. Nobody has written Cyborg more than Geoff Johns. And unfortunately, for people like Ray Fisher, that didn't clash with who he thought Cyborg was. And this is really a problem when you get people in Hollywood, and I don't like Hollywood. I tried out long ago for Gilmore Girls when I was doing acting. And it was just it was this. Go into a changing room, put this small little thing on, and do a twirl for us. And I was like, yeah, I'm out. I'm done. But that's okay, because I didn't want to deal with it. But Ray Fisher pushed ahead and decided he did. And in that pushing ahead, got a role as Cyborg, who Geoff Johns brought onto Justice League because it was one of his favorite characters. And Geoff Johns really, at the core of it, knows that character more than most. Knows a lot of characters more than most. But Ray Fisher, completely 100% today, went in on him to the point where I actually am surprised that people are buying it. Now, I'm not going to defend a single thing that Joss Whedon has done. I don't believe that he is anything but a jerk. I don't believe that he is anything but an ego with a head that thinks that they can simply manipulate their cast or crew to do what they want, because he is a big shot and he has an ego. So, no, I don't care to even talk about Joss Whedon. Do I think what he did to Gal Gadot supposedly in here is true? Probably. You could tell the difference, like Flash landing in her cleavage. That wasn't Wonder Woman-esque. That wasn't cool. Wonder Woman's on the team. She's not a female on the team. She's on the team. She's part of the team. She helps make the team. She's not a pair of boobs. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I kind of believe a lot of the accusations slung against Joss Whedon, but even so, I don't have any proof of this. But when you have person after person after person after person come out, it kind of gets, like, yeah, probably. Now, how many people have come out against Geoff Johns? So just Ray Fisher. All right, well then let's get right into it. Now, they start out this article. And the only reason I even want to highlight it is because he goes in with the emotion technique. Now, I do appreciate that this writer at the Hollywood Reporter did give both sides to a point of the story, but not really. They really did push the whole race baiting aspect that has become so popular in the last year. And unfortunately, it's really the downfall when it comes to real not being racism, right? It makes people exactly the opposite. If you're constantly looking at the color of someone's skin, can you judge their character? Or are you judging them as a skin color and a sexuality? Even so, I digress. They go in with the emotional thing. And he even does openly admit that he wasn't going to talk about this, right? But when he saw what Black Lives Matter was doing, he went all in on it. All right, okay. So you wanted your time in the limelight is what you're telling me. Okay, all right. Well, he talks about his relationship with Zach, and I get that. You have your bias just as I have mine. I want to be fair about that. But your bias has made you demonize people that have been cleared by investigations. It has made you try to use your power of cancellation because you can cite your skin color as a way to ruin people's careers. Is that okay? I mean, in this society, it kind of has become that way, but he was mad that Zach had made him the heart of the movie. And I liked his little arc in the Snyder Cut. His part was scaled back because white writers and white directors, no. Because they scaled back everybody. They didn't just scale you back. They didn't change and they kind of dropped that off the boat where they said they changed the skin tone coloring, which was total BS. Of course, they do that to everybody. White, black, Asian, Lebanese, it doesn't matter. They change it to look clear and completely tonal for the shot. Of course, they're going to do that. That has nothing to do with you, but you tried to make it seem like it did because you knew it would outrage. Basically, he thought he was going to go in there and, being a black man, explain the most basic points of what would be offensive to the black community. And I do think that any sort of person's interest or influence when they live it is much more meaningful than when you don't. It is going to be a lot easier for me to write a female superhero than a man. That doesn't mean a man can't also. And it doesn't mean that a man can't understand and have a life experience rich enough to write that character also. So he also talks about, and I thought this was really degrading, really, really dumb thing to say, Ray. It represents that his parents, he's talking about his arc in the Snyder Cut, have two genius level black people. We don't see that every day. I'm not going to comment. I'm just going to move on. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? How disparaging to your community. Way to make kids proud, Ray. Anyways, so this is where we get into the Jeff Johns stuff. And he's being called everything from a racist to a homophobe or you name it online because SJWs believe everything. And I know I hate using that term. I apologize, but damn, this one makes me mad. He basically, he turned to Jeff Johns, who was presented as a kind of mediator. And he said, you can't make Joss mad. So he's protecting your ass and his. Okay. Even so, Johns denies it. He says he recalls suggesting that any creative pitches should be put in when he wasn't preoccupied and more receptive. That makes sense. But you've also got to realize Joss Whedon is looking at everybody as below him. That's the ego I talked about in the beginning. So he said once Whedon got involved, Fisher says that Johns told him it was problematic that Cyborg smiled only twice in the movie, right? Because Cyborg generally, of course, it depends on which arc you're reading or if you're doing animation. It depends, of course, upon what you're in tune to. But Cyborg can be a very serious character, or he can be a more jovial character. He can be the brains of everything, or he can be the blunt of the joke. I don't think that's how that's said. But even so, there's a lot of things about Cyborg. There's a lot of deep characteristics to him, right? So it's okay that he only smiled once, twice. But when you're trying to make the movie more hopeful, more basically uplifting in a sense that superheroes should be, then yeah, it's time to add some smiles. Even so, even if it's silly, it is. Fisher says later he learned from a witness who participated in the investigation that Johns and other top executives, including then DC Films, John Berg, who's no longer there, and Toby Emmerich, had discussed in which they did not want him to be the angry black man. Now, I've done videos before where I talk about John Ridley, and that's the voice in writing he always is encompassing. So they were trying to avoid a stereotype, and he's now demeaning him for it. Okay, it doesn't matter. If this studio wanted a brighter tone for the film, the studio gets a brighter tone for the film. You are not there for your brain or anything like that. You're there as and I've said this before, you're a harlequin or a jester. You do your little dance, you say your lines, you deliver what you have to, and then you shut up. Because you're an actor. That's what you're paid to do. You're not paid for your studio input. You're not paid to say, well, I don't want this movie to have a brighter tone. It's not up to you, Ray. It is not up to you one tiny, teeny bit. Because they wanted to add joy and hopefulness to this 6 superheroes. There's always conversations about avoiding any stereotypes of race, gender, or sexuality. It's not a bad thing. Okay. We're going to keep going. So Johns told Fisher he should play the character less like Frankenstein and more like Quasimodo. Now, that's, again, here's where it really irritates me. Fisher said that in order to demonstrate the look, notice the words, he wanted, Johns dipped a shoulder and some servile posture, okay, to Fisher. There was a big difference between portraying a character who had born with a disability and one who had been transformed by trauma, and he felt Cyborg was the kind of modern-day Frankenstein. I didn't have any intention of playing him jovial, cathedral-cleaning individual. Yeah, it's not up to you. You didn't write that character for years. You didn't create that character. You are just playing that character. It is not up to you. You are making yourself look more and more like an entitled asshole every single day. Jeffs gave a no. I'm using a fictional character as an example of a sympathetic man who is unhappy and had an inclination to hide from the world, but one who was the audience roots for because he has a courageous heart. And that's exactly the best way to describe what I would think of as Cyborg. And this is the problem. I talked about gatekeeping yesterday and how it wasn't okay. But in a sense, there's gatekeeping in everything, because in order to get rid of characterizations or generalizations or stereotypes, you have to shut the silliness down. And I don't know any other way to describe it, because you don't know the character. You didn't create the character. It's not yours to play with. And I even said that yesterday. It's not up to you. Fisher told Johns that it would be one thing for a non-black person to write a character for a comic. Oh my God, we're going into segregation here. But it was another for a black actor to portray them on screen. Right. But again, you don't own the character. You are you're a jester. You're a man. You're a jester. Do what they say. If you don't want the job, quit. It is that simple. I apologize. Fisher Johns did not yield. That was the last creative conversation he had with him, even though he denied it. So here's where it gets even more angry. So Geoff Johns is Lebanese American. His first wife was a Black American. His second wife, an Asian American. He has mixed children. They're going to paint him as a racist. They're going to paint him as a homophobe, and it's going to get really bad. That whole thing about Booyah, guess what? I'm going to go back to it one more time. You don't own the character. You do what they say. You could trust him for the characterization. He's been doing it a lot. He's been doing more in the past 5 years than you have ever done in your life. That's the sad thing. He didn't want, Black characters to have that, defining phrase like Gary Coleman, what you talking about, Willis, or Dynamite. And I understand that. I do. I get it from your side. But it is a simple saying that is beloved by children that look up to Teen Titans Go. It has become a staple. You were hired for a job. You do the job. And I probably should have opened with this because there's not many left of you listening. But here's the thing. There's another actor that's came out. There was a show called Krypton, and I didn't know Adam Strange was in it. I would have watched it. Adam Strange is one of my favorite characters. I love him. So there was a man that was named Reggie Jean Page. He tried out for Superman's grandfather, and they said no, his grandfather's not Black. These things are canonically made for a reason. If you want a character or if you want a show about Black characters, do it. That we have that. Can you imagine if they had made Lightning or Thunder's grandfather white? Are you serious with this? There is a reason these things are set up. It's not to fight with each other. It's not to do anything, but simply stay true to the character. Now, they wanted to make... What the fuck? They wanted to make Adam Strange gay or bisexual? Are you fucking kidding me? Alana is such a big part of his story. What about his daughter? It's irritating. It's really irritating to see this kind of stuff. What's even more irritating is where it's going. Jeff celebrates. Yeah, he gave his whole, statement. It makes sense. These things are canonically written for a reason. If there is a character that has her own show that is gay, Ryan Wilder's Batwoman right now, would it be okay to change it to bisexual because we want her dating a man now? No! Of course not. So it's not okay the other way around. It's ridiculous. That one makes me so mad because this is what they're going to use. And it's already begun. Because he wouldn't make Adam Strange gay. And because he wouldn't make Superman's grandfather Black. He is now a racist. He is now a homophobe. And they are now coming for his job. They are coming for his head. And they also add in this whole stuff with Superman and Lois, which is doing great in ratings, better than any CW show ever, where she wanted to make his Kal-El's adoptive family Black. And she said she got fired, which was a lie. Her contract was just not renewed, which could have been for anything. It could have been because you're difficult to work with, just like Ray Fisher. But even so, this has all come to a head at this race baiting culture. And I'm not sure when it's going to end. At this point, I don't know. I would be really, really sad to see Geoff Johns go. I would be sad to see his work not continue, at least at DC Comics, because that's where I think he's best utilized. But I'm sure it's not what pays the best. So, I don't know. It's ridiculous. Here they come for Geoff Johns, and we'll see when it stops. I'm not actually sure that it's going to. I'm not sure that any of this is going to. What Warner Brothers needs to do is completely say, look, we gave you what you want. It's over. We're not firing the A, B, or C. We're not doing this, this, or that. And they need to put their foot down. Because when you give a mouse a cookie, he calls Geoff Johns racist. I don't know. It's ridiculous. Anyways, let me know, of course, what you guys think about all of this in the comments. This should be interesting. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.